think without any further delay, let us get started. And now I know a couple of you guys already joined, so we can get started so people can come in or they can watch the recording. So the meeting is getting recorded at the moment. So welcome to the session. So let me quickly share my screen. So we'll set some expectations and then probably we'll jump onto the topic itself, right? So let me quickly share my screen. Yeah, so and I think one of you, if you can please confirm whether my voice is audible, I'm loud and clear, and then if my screen is visible. So maybe you can type in clear in the chat box, then I get the confirmation. So yeah, thumbs up from Deepak. Thank you so much, Deepak. So I think we are good to go then. So let me share my presentation real quickly. Give me a moment. Okay, so I think before we kickstart this session, so let me present this. Okay, so I really appreciate, first of all, thank you for taking some time out during your weekends. I really appreciate it. During your weekends, you're joining this session out of your busy weekend. So thank you so much for that. I just want to thank you upfront because of your time during the weekends. So I make sure this session will be impactful. I'll try to provide as much as I can and derive some value for you so that you will take something out of the session and try and implement or learn something new out of it. So, and I know many of you will have questions during the session. So please reserve your questions towards the end of the session. We will have probably 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the session, a quick Q&A wherein you can have all of your questions answered. So I'm going to answer those. In case if there are questions which I cannot answer right away, I'm going to go back and do some research or whatever I can do to come back to you as quick as possible. Okay, sounds good. So we'll take all the questions towards the end. I know during the session you may have a lot of questions, but let me explain all of the concepts, and then it is not going to be a theoretical session. Obviously, we are going to focus on the hands-on. So I'm going to show some of the concepts or the techniques what we are going to discuss with respect to optimization in the Fabric portal also. Okay, and then I think you can probably down the line during the session, your question may be answered or not. We will take it towards the end. Okay, so that is one which I wanted to quickly set the expectation even before we kickstart the session, right? Okay. So I think coming to topic, so we are going to, in the next 1 hour, we are going to learn about how you can optimize delta tables. So I assume, most of you are from diverse backgrounds and diverse roles. I understand that. So this session is not meant for diving into the basics of delta table or what is one lake. I'm not going to get into that. So I hope, and I assume you have some knowledge about the basics, right? What is delta table in the Fabric ecosystem, or what is one lake? So I hope you have a bit of knowledge. So this session is going to be purely on the optimization side on the delta table. So what are all the different techniques you can explore, like partitioning, be it or V-order, or what is Z-order at a glance, or how you can manage, the small Parquet files that is being created. How can we tackle those small file problem? So we are going to talk about all of those different techniques, and we are also going to talk about, let's say, partitioning, when you can go for partitioning, when not to partition, right? It is not a thumb rule for any data you can do the partitioning. So there are some best practices from Microsoft. So I'm going to discuss with you on that, and I'm going to show you right from some of the forums as well, what Microsoft is recommending, when you can go for partitioning. And we're going to talk about the underlying technology of what V-ordering is and how you can configure those in Fabric when you maintain a table. So all of those things we are going to look at, and then probably towards the end of the session, you can ask your questions, right? So that's what we are going to learn, how to structure the delta tables in a nutshell for performance, right? So I hope by now, if you have already joined my previous session or watched the recording, you may by now aware about the direct lake technology in Power BI, right? So what at a brief, direct lake is going to be talking to the underlying tables directly without any data being copied into the memory, right? So maybe if you're not aware about it, a quick glance about the direct lake, because uh, once we optimize the delta table, I think the direct lake technology from Power BI, which will render the reports directly from the underlying tables, that will also benefit, right? So that we are going to talk about that as well. Okay, how Direct Lake as a technology will benefit from the Delta table optimizations in OneLake. Okay, so let us quickly move on. So a bit of introduction about me. So I'm a Microsoft Certified Cloud Data Architect, so founder and CEO of Datavion Academy. And I'm a Microsoft certified trainer with close to 15 plus years of IT experience and close to 5 plus in data and analytics. So I have trained close to 500 plus students across India, Europe, Australia, so to name a few. And I'm an expert in Fabric, Azure, and Power BI and real-time data modeling as well. So I have my dedicated YouTube channel. So if you're not aware, you can go there and watch a lot of videos that I've already posted. And I think this video is one of the last video in the One Lake series. So I'll share the link for the playlist. If you haven't watched my previous videos, you can definitely go through that. And I think at Datavion, my core mission is to turn you guys, curious learners, into confident professionals through structured real world learning. We are not going to talk about only theory or concepts. So whatever we are talking about, I strongly believe in hands-on. Okay, so if you take even certifications, if you're preparing for certifications, or whatever content we produce, or we make sure we provide some hands-on and real-world end-to-end projects as well. So there are quite a lot of projects we already deployed in the platform. So if you're interested, you can go through those real-time project on stock market and other things, other projects as well. Okay, so that's a bit about me. And I think, as I mentioned, this video is the last video in the One Lake series. Maybe I can share you the playlist in the chat shortly so that you can go through what we have covered in the previous sessions or the live workshops. We covered about mirroring, we talked about One Lake security, and then how you can integrate a lake house and warehouse, how we can best fit these two within the Fabric ecosystem. So we talked about all those three different ideas or technologies. And today we are going to talk about Delta table optimizations in One Lake. Okay, let's get started. I think, yeah. So that's a bit about introduction. So okay, so I think why we need Delta table optimization. So why it is actually matters in the first place, right? So why we need to go for it. So there are many technologies what we are going to look at, as I mentioned, partitioning, be it or reorder. But why we need to do that, right? So because it will boost the performance, as I mentioned, especially for the Power BI Direct Lake mode, right? So there are three different modes. You may be aware if you're already in Power BI world, the import mode, direct query, and there is this third technology Microsoft introduced, which is Direct Lake. But it is not a kind of one size fits all, right? So I won't say that. It depends on business use cases, right? So if they need to restrict the data in memory, they can go for import mode. If you need to bring in all of the underlying tables into the memory, then I think you can leverage Direct Lake, which is much faster than direct query, right? So it all depends on business use cases, I would say. So there is no one size fits all approach here. So I think it directly impacts the Power BI directly. Like if you're building your data model and rendering the reports out of the data model with the direct lake storage mode, it directly impacts once you optimize the Delta table. So it will give a performance boost, right? So that is one which you need to keep in mind. And also the notebooks, Spark notebooks, when you're building during your transformations, you will work directly with the Delta tables, and then you kind of do the transformation or reading the table. So we are going to talk about that V-order and all, how it will improve the reading performance, how do we do that, and all those things, right? So basically, it's something we are doing to improve the performance of let's say for Power BI Direct Lake, or when you're building some transformational notebooks, it will directly impact those, right? And I think we are essentially trying to reduce the kind of skipping the scans, or you can say reduce the data scans being made when you're running a query, let's say from your notebook. So I think we are going to talk about partitioning and how we can avoid or skip those unwanted chunks of data to be scanned, right? So that's the idea of partitioning at the basic level, right? So, and I think we are also trying to reduce the cost, because the compute cost, be it right, if we are trying to scan the complete set of data. the cost is also going to be very expensive. So how we can reduce the cost, and then the data scanning time and the query performance, and overall how we can improve the user experience at the end of the day, right? So that's what we are trying to look at. And that's why we are trying to optimize the delta tables in first place to kind of get those performance boost and cost efficiency as well, you can say, right? And I think it supports if you have a large scale medallion architecture designs with your bronze, silver, and gold layers. In a real time use cases, right? In the real world use cases, you might have kind of the medallion architectural pattern, so that you flow the data across different layers. So you make sure you have your tables optimized, which flows through different layers efficiently. Okay, so those are some of the points at a glance, right? So why we need to go for delta optimization. So because we need to talk about the why, before we even looking at the solutions, with respect to optimization. Okay, so if you have a few more points, or if you have more suggestions, or that could be many, feel free to put your comments in the chat box, right? Well, let's quickly move on. So I think I'll take you through a few slides. We'll go through one of the technology like partitioning, and then maybe we can jump on to Fabric Portal. So I'm not going to take you through complete tech. Okay, so we'll jump onto Fabric and then come back again as and when we talk about some of the technologies, right? Okay, so partitioning, I think if you are from data world, most of you are already aware. I'm not going to go into the very basics of it, right? So it's basically the folder level data partitioning or data fragmentation that you're going to do. And I think the critical part is the design choice, right? So how you are going to define your partitioning strategy, that is what it is matters, right? Because at the end of the day, in Fabric or any notebook, it is just a single line of code. When you're writing the data to the one lake, you can within a single line you can do that. By which column you need to partition. You can simply say that partition by. That's it. And I'm going to show you the syntax. If you're a complete beginner also. Okay. Um, but I think the design strategy is something very important. The partitioning strategy, the columns, when you need to partition, when you shouldn't partition. So that is exactly what we are going to talk about. Because talking about the basics, I don't think many of you are already aware. So I don't want to probably dive into that or but we are going to talk about some of the best practices on when you can go for partitioning and what are the different conditions you can say you need to probably keep in mind when you're going for partitioning strategies, right? And basically, as you know, it enables query pruning or the data scanning, reducing the data scan time, right? Or skipping some of the blocks of code, blocks of data, or a chunk of data. That's the idea. So when you're trying to filter the data, let's say by any predicate which matches that partitioning column, then I think it will try and avoid the unwanted data, and then it will speed up the performance. So that's the whole idea of partitioning. Okay. And I think it's ideal for, let's say, date or a region. If you want to filter your data by regional level, then you can go for, let's say, you can partition your data by regional level for India, India, America, or whatever it is. Then I think it's easy when you're trying to do some analysis in that particular region with the filters region is equal to India, then it will kind of skip all of the other countries and it will be much efficient. So at a basic level, okay. So that's what partitioning as a foundation. So most of you are already aware, but now let's talk about when to partition, when not to. So that is what is very important, right? So I think the first thing which I want to talk about and show you some of the documentation is when you can partition. So here I'm mentioning when the table size is greater than 100 gigs, but that is not a thumb rule. I'm going to show you the documentation because in fact, in Microsoft documentation, they are highlighting it as 1 TB. Okay, so they're saying anything lesser than 1 TB, don't go for partitioning. But again, that is not a thumb rule. There is one of the response from Microsoft moderator in the forum. I'm going to show you that. So one of the user already had that question, why that 1 TB? If you're wondering, or if you have some questions around this 100 GB, I'm sure you might have a question at this point, why, from where I took this 100 GB, right? So it is not a thumb rule, but we will talk about why 1 TB that Microsoft mentioned in their document, and what is the response and how we can leverage, right? So basically, but uh, thinking logically, I think any small or medium-sized tables you should try and avoid. It is not a thumb rule. Even for a simple table, you can go ahead and partition your data. Then you will run into a problem called small file problem. We are going to talk about what small file problem is, right? So you will have metadata bloat as well. When I say metadata bloat, uh, as and when you create a partition, it will create multiple folders in the backend, and it will also create a metadata, right? So metadata needs to be captured as well. So it is like unnecessary pressure, I would say, right? So if you're trying to create your partitions even for a very smaller table, then I think it will overweigh, I mean, uh, it will outweigh the benefits, I would say, right? So you will run into a problem, small file problem and all. Okay. So I think you have to be very sure. Maybe you need to have a cutoff, but that's exactly what we are going to talk about. And I think the filter columns, right? So when you're trying to decide on a particular partitioning column, ideally, as per Microsoft documentation, again, I'm going to show you this. I'm not giving you a number which is out of nowhere, right? So it is from a Microsoft documentation. Their claim is like less than 200 distinct values. That is sufficient. Okay, so if you have more than 200, like let's say user ID column, I think it doesn't make sense if you're going for a high cardinality columns like user ID and all. So that's the basic at a basic level you need to keep in mind when you are thinking about partitioning your data. You should make sure you are deciding on a partitioning column that is at least lesser than 200 distinct or unique values. So if it's like high cardinality, more than 200, 500, I think then I think it doesn't make any sense to go ahead with the partitioning. So you need to have that best practice or recommendation from Microsoft somewhere. Keep a note so that it will be handy when you're trying to decide on a partitioning column and then the strategy, right? Uh, but coming back to a couple of things I wanted to show you real quickly. This documentation. Okay, so this is the documentation from Microsoft when to partition your tables on Databricks, but in fact it applies to the notebooks even inside the Fabric ecosystem. But have a look at this. I think they're saying most tables with less than 1 TB of data doesn't require partitions. That's what their claim is. Okay, but again, this is not a thumb rule. I'm going to show you another forum response related to this. Okay, so I think if you're already on a data world, you might have already definitely did partitioning, at some point in time. You can tell me probably at the end of the session, or you can come back to me later in an email. How did you decide on the partitioning strategy, right? So I think then it will be a nice discussion between both of us. But that's their claim, 1 TB. But I think, it's not a one size fits all. But I think let me move on to another documentation real quickly. Okay. So this is one of the forum. So there is a question from Martin back in January 6th, 2025. He's asking why only for tables bigger than 1 TB? Why that's the case for delta tables? See, in fact, if you think about it, for smaller or medium-sized tables, for delta table, the catch here is we're talking about delta table from delta table scope. Okay, smaller or medium tables, it will be much efficient, and you don't need to go for partitioning. If it's like let's say uh, in probably 10 or 20 gigs or whatever it is, right? So if it's a small or medium-sized table, the claim is delta table will handle it even without partitioning. It will be much faster and efficient when you try to read the data. Okay, but if you see here, he posted that question, okay, and there is this response, accepted answer from Microsoft. And why the 1 TB rule? Okay, and they're mentioning it's a great question, obviously, right? So why 1 TB rule? Is it a thumb rule? I think three things they're talking about here, which is crucial for you to understand. Maybe I can quickly take you through, and I'll also share this link. You can, if you enjoy reading, read a lot about this later. But they're talking about three things. Oh, they're saying it all depends on the trade-offs between metadata overhead and query write performance. So what does that mean? So metadata management, I mentioned just before. So every partition that you create will add metadata to the Delta Lake transactional log, right? So that will happen in the background. You cannot see that, but it will happen in the background. So let's say for smaller tables, it is going to be a overhead for sure. if it's a smaller table or medium-sized table. It will try and create a lot many metadata logs in the backend, and it will outweigh the potential benefits because they're mentioning for any modern engines like Spark already handling this efficiently without partitioning for smaller tables or medium-sized tables. So that's one claim. Okay. And the second thing is the query patterns, which is matter. You have to decide on the partitioning column, and I think it's most useful when you are regularly filtering the data based on that column, right? So when you're deciding on a particular column strategy, so I think in the future, I think or down the line, if you're trying to use that predicate with that partitioning column, if you're trying to filter the data using that, then it is useful. And if your data isn't being queried by that partitioning key, what's the use of creating the partitions in the first place, right? You're not avoiding any scan time and all. So that mattered as well. And the right performance. Again, writing to partitioning tables involves some overhead. Spark, from Spark, this can slow down writes as well. So those are the three things they're talking about. And I think what's their recommendation now? So they are giving few suggestions. So this is what we need to focus probably. So for larger tables greater than 100 gigs and growing, see, they are not saying 100 GB again, right? So if it's greater than 100 GB, and if you think if you're foreseeing it will grow substantially, right? So if reasonable, it's reasonable to partition them preemptively, right? So if you think it's going to grow, let's say from 100 gigs to 500 gigs to 1 TB, or exceeding 1 TB even, then it is reasonable to make the partition. They are not saying greater than 100 GB, go ahead and do the partition. No, right? So again, you need to think about how you're going to decide on the probably you need to have some visibility how the data is going to be growing or not, right? And I think for smaller tables, as I mentioned, see, let's say 3 to 5 gigs, right? They're asking to avoid partitioning. He's recommending to avoid partitioning. So if you have a different view, feel free to post to me or to the group. Probably we can work it out. These are the recommendations, and it makes sense to me as well. And Delta Lake, as I mentioned, it is quite optimized for small to medium tables, and it can handle it efficiently. So you no need to do the partitioning and then put that overhead, right? So put the pressure as well, right? So keep this in mind. These are handy points, I would say, to decide on the partitioning strategy, because it's very important when you think about the performance or optimize it in an enterprise kind of a setting, right? So you need to definitely think through this. And I think they're talking about Z ordering. So if you're not sure about Z ordering, hold on. Don't probably worry about it. Yeah, even I'm not going to cover in the session. It's not in the scope of this session, but at a brief, it is kind of a clustering, right? So even if you don't have partitioning, Microsoft is saying alternative, you can use Z ordering. It is actually kind of clusters your data on a specific column. That's what is happening with Z ordering. Okay, but don't worry too much about Z ordering. But keep these in mind when you need to partition, when you need to avoid. So which is very crucial, which is what I wanted to highlight. Probably let me just probably put these links in the chat box so that you guys can go through that at a later point in time. Put those things. So this is that forum I talked about, and the link where they mentioned about 1 TB, right? So that also I can post it for you. So I think you can read a lot later. Yeah, great. So I think that's all I wanted to talk about with respect to partitioning. The strategy, especially when we need to partition, when we shouldn't partition, right? So let's come back to the presentation. Or let me show you. I think it's a simple syntax and all. Let me quickly show you how you can do the partitioning. But one of the use case from my DP600 course, a free course. So I'm just going to show you the syntax, not the complete code and all. So how easy it is to partition the data once you have the table in the notebook. All you're going to say is partition by, and then the format is delta. That's it, right? So then it will kind of here I'm just partitioning by the location key, and I can quickly show you in the Lakehouse how the data is partitioned as well. Okay, so let me go to my COVID Lakehouse. Let me expand. Okay, let me expand any one of the table. That's totally fine. The gold table, or so I go to view files. There you can see I've partitioned the data in the file view based on the location key, right? So since this project is based on COVID data, I wanted to partition based on the location because it is ideal when I run some queries, I kind of, run the queries based on the location, right? So if I wanted to kind of look at the India level statistics and other information related to a specific region, then I think it makes sense to partition by location. Again, this data is not huge. So what we talked about just now, maybe I probably shouldn't partition it if it's a smaller data set. So you always need to keep that in mind, how large your data size is, and then decide on the partitioning key and then go for it. Okay, especially if it's the delta table. So don't have a thumb rule. Again, I'm insisting to right away when you write the delta table. So people might have that tendency to, let's say, what happened to the table? Okay, sorry. So they might have this tendency to write as delta table and then partition it by default. Don't do that, please. So as per the recommendation, you need to assess your data size and then go for it. Okay, especially for the data table. I mean delta table. Okay. Uh, so that's what you need to keep in mind. So coming back to the presentation, we'll come back to presentation. Yeah, give me a moment. Present it again. Yeah. So I think by now, I think you have some idea about it, how when you need to partition and what are those strategies you need to think about, and the data size and the cardinality aspects and other information. Okay. So small file problem, as I mentioned, the metadata bloat is nothing but the metadata overhead we just talked about in the forum, right? So the partitioning will create a lot of, each partition will create the transactional logs in the backend. And when you are creating unwanted partitions, it will add the overhead. So it will kind of, it could be bloated as well, right? So that's what we call it as metadata bloat. Over partitioning causes that small file problems, right? So I think at the end of it, we'll also talk about how you can prevent the small file problem with the kind of optimized command in Fabric. I'm going to show you that, how you can maintain your table as well. Okay, let's move on. Give me a moment, just a moment. Okay, good. So we talked about partitioning. Oh, let's talk about V-order optimization, which is quite critical. One of the technology which we need to be aware to make sure, I think, by default, what is the setting and how you can leverage this setting to improve the performance of delta tables, right? See, V-order, it is the Microsoft's technology. Okay, V-order is developed or innovated by Microsoft, and I think you need to think about or imagine this as a right level, I mean, right time optimization technique. Okay, so basically, when you're writing to the Parquet file, we are, the sorting is going to happen, and we are going to exactly talk about the structure, what's happening at the time of write. Okay, and then it will provide lightning fast reads when you're trying to read the data from delta table. Okay, so the idea is to provide you with the lightning fast reads, okay, inside the Parquet files, but how are we optimizing it at the time of writing? Okay, so by doing the sorting. Okay, so that's what is happening in the backend. Okay, but there's something called row level or row group sorting that is happening in the backend. I'm going to quickly talk about that structure. Probably if you have any questions, let me know. So I think all the data, the delta tables that you're going to create in the backend, it is going to create the Parquet files in the backend, right? So it is all about Parquet files, which is a columnar format. And I'm not, if you're new to Parquet files, maybe I would recommend you to do some reading. It is a columnar storage format, unlike the traditional row level format or storage. So what happens is ideally in a Parquet file, okay, so we will have multiple row groups. Okay, so you can think of row group as a block of data or mini segment of data inside the Parquet file. That's what we call it as row groups. And essentially, inside a Parquet file, we'll have multiple row groups or the row groups are being distributed. Okay. Um, and I think at the time of writing, this technique, the V-order technique, will kind of keep the similar values in every row group. That's the idea. I hope you got it. Let me repeat that. So at the time of writing your delta files, right? So when you're, I've just shown you the syntax. So you have the data frame ready, and then you will say write to a table in the format delta. So if VORDER is enabled, we are going to see that how we can enable it. And I think the key thing to remember is by default it is disabled inside the Fabric Spark notebook. Okay, so I'm going to show you that. So you make sure you enable it so that every row group will have similar values. See, I think when I say column chunks, if you imagine you have 5 different columns in a table, okay, and you have 1 million records in a particular table, and let's say we have 10 row groups, each row group will hold 100K records, something like that. Okay, something of that scenario. Okay, so we have 10 row groups, and then we have 100K records in each row group, and each row group will have those 5 columns. That's what we call as column chunks inside it, because Parquet is essentially a columnar format. So each row group will have all the columns. If you have 5 columns in the table, you will have that 5 columns in row group 1. For each row group, will have that column chunks, right? And then the column data is being chunked in every row group. As I mentioned, if you have 1 million rows, you'll have 100K, let's say for 10 row groups. But if you're not enabling VORDER, it is not kind of holding a similar value or sorted in a sorted order in every row group. And that's the idea we are trying to do here. So the row group level sorting kind of every row group will kind of have a similar value based on the columns. See, when you're doing the reordering based on any specific columns or all the columns, so what happens is it will try and do the sorting for you, okay, and to make sure we have similar kind of cluster or similar set of values in every row group. So what happens is at the time of reading, like in partitioning, it will try and avoid, it will get into a particular row group. Let's say when I say region is equal to India, and if the first row group holds all of the values related to India region, okay, then what happens is we will skip rest of the 9 row groups, right? So in that way, we'll skip the rest of the row groups and the data scanning time, and that will improve the performance. And I hope it makes sense. Maybe if you have doubts, let me know. I just gave you the structure or the technique, how it works, right? So basically, it's the row level or row group sorting so that we will try and skip or reduce the data scan time. Okay, and at the end of the reordering, once you have it enabled and then write to the delta tables with the reordering enabled, then each and every row group inside the Parquet file holds kind of a similar value or kind of a tight level or tight level data, right? So making sure we have similar values organized in a particular row group. Okay. So that's the idea of reordering, and it also has this minimum maximum statistics in every row group, and that is being used for skipping. Okay, so it will also maintain metadata which has min and max value stats in every row group as well. Okay, and this is at the Parquet level. Okay, so at the time of, as I mentioned, when you're writing to the delta table Parquet file, when you're creating that Parquet file, we need to make sure reorder is enabled, then the magic will happen. Okay. So let me know if any questions on how this works. I just gave you a brief on the technique working, how it's working in the backend at a high level. And it complements partitioning, right? So you no need to make sure, do the partitioning and then do the reordering. It works directly on the Parquet file. So it complements partitioning, even if you don't have partitioning, doesn't matter. It works on the non-partitioning columns as well. Okay, that you need to keep in mind as well. And it improves the performance of Power BI and notebook queries, as we talked about. So that's the idea. We are trying to optimize the delta tables. So now I think let us look at the configuration by jumping onto the notebook before. Let me come back to the Fabric portal real quickly. Well, let me close this. Okay, right. So I have this notebook. Okay, so this is the command. I think I'm in a notebook, PySpark notebook, and I have this magic command, SQL command. I'm saying set spark.sql.parquet.vorder.default. See, by default, it will be false. Why you are saying true here is because I set it to true. That's the reason you are seeing it as true. Let me run this. Maybe if you're running a fresh session, I think it will be false. Let me run this for you quickly. Okay, there you go. I think you can see by default it is false when the session is up and running, right? So I think even in the Microsoft documentation, it's clearly mentioned. It is by default. Okay, give me a moment. So we order. And I think one more thing which you need to keep in mind, I'll share this link, documentation link. It is orthogonal to other techniques. So which means you can do the time travel vacuum compaction. We are going to talk about it. So when they say orthogonal, you can add this benefit to other benefits also. It is not like when you're doing vOrder, you cannot do other optimizations. It is always orthogonal to be orthogonal, right? So as such, it can be used together for extra benefits. And you can see vOrder by default disabled. So that's the key thing you need to remember in Fabric. So you need to enable it explicitly. Okay, so let me come back to the portal. So this is the command that you need to provide to check what is the default setting, right? And then to enable it, very simple, you're going to just say default is equal to true. That's it. And then that will enable the reordering for you in this particular session. Okay, so see here, so it is now enabled. And if I run this again, I should get the setting as true, right? So that's it, very simple. But we talked about the inner workings or the underlying technology of reordering, because it's just a click of a button, you can enable it and then write to a Delta table. It will be the reordering optimization will take effect. But you need to know uh, the technology itself, how it is happening, what is reorder. So I hope I have provided some information related to that so that you can try and implement it whenever you need it. Well, okay, so let us talk about, see, I think one more thing is you no need to explicitly do this. I'm going to show you how you can also maintain your table. Microsoft is providing that capability as well. So we're going to talk about that real quickly as well. So coming back to the presentation. Okay. So there is something called optimize in Fabric. So, and you no need to run any commands. There is a UI level wizard which you can use to apply the reorder and reorder technique inside it, and then you can maintain a table, and it will submit the Spark job for you. You no need to run the command that I've just shown separately. Okay, so when you use optimize in Fabric, it merges small files. I talked about small file problem, right? In case if you have too many small files, probably you could have probably you partitioned your data for smaller data sets and you have a small file problem. Then I think optimize will kind of merges those or do the compaction for you to merge all of the small files and applies reorder. And I'm going to show you how you can execute this optimize within Fabric. Okay, and basically, I think we can run this when you're doing a major data ingestion operations in your analytical system, and then run the optimize or maintain the table once. Okay, and ZORDER, as I mentioned, it is kind of a clustering technique. Even without partitioning, you can use the ZORDER, but I'm not going into the details at the moment. So keep probably will stick to the VORDER at the moment. Okay, so maybe in another opportunity we can talk in detail about ZORDER. Right. So let me come back to okay let me come back to the Fabric portal again. Give me a minute. Okay, let me go back to my lake house. So here I have many delta tables that you can see the delta symbol, which tells me those are delta tables that I have in my workspace. So I think you click on any table, the three dots, and say maintenance. There is an option called maintenance, and you can see run maintenance command window open on the right side, where you can optimize your file size. It will run the Delta Lake optimize command in Spark to compact and rewrite Delta Parquet files. And there is this checkbox where it says apply vOrder to maximize reading speeds in Fabric, right? And I think one other thing which you need to keep in mind, the write times you will have some latency to write, because as I mentioned, we are trying to maximize the reading speeds, but the technology itself, will take effect when you're doing the writing. right? So when you're trying to write to the delta table, we are doing the sorting, right? As I mentioned, the row group level sorting. So there'll be like a 15% impact on average write times that you can see. Microsoft is providing that tooltip, but it provides up to 50% more compression, and then it will be much efficient once the write is done. And the reading speed will be maximized for you as well when you're trying to read the delta table that is V-order optimized. And I think, as I mentioned, you no need to run the commands in Spark when you uh, want to maintain the table. You just check this, and also you can remove the see vacuum is something. If you are new to vacuum command, again you no need to run any command. If I say run this vacuum command using retention threshold, which means any files unreferenced files, okay, the files which we are not using anymore. If I say lesser than 7 days within this retention threshold, if you run this vacuum command, all the files will be kind of, I think, archived. I'm not very sure whether it will delete or archive it. Okay, but it will try to remove those unreferenced files for you. Maybe it's, I think, deleting. Okay, it's not archiving. Using this retention threshold. So when I say run now, what happens is it will submit the Spark job to maintain this table. So it will go ahead and even after the table creation, it will run the optimize and do the reordering for you. Okay, and then probably you can monitor the job and also see if the unreferenced files are getting cleared. Okay, but let me show you this documentation real quickly. Yeah, so I'll also share this Delta Lakehouse table maintenance. So here, what we have seen exactly is what discussed here, reordering vacuum and all those things. But I think what happens is once you run the command, how does it work? It will submit a maintenance job for execution. Okay, using the identity and table privileges, and jobs can be easily tracked in the monitoring hub as well. Once you kick off the job, you can go ahead and monitor it and look at the progress, I would say, right? So that this is key thing which you need to remember. So you need to kind of make that decision. Probably once you have the tables loaded, or periodically you need to make sure you run the maintenance commands, or you can even automate it in a notebook also, right? Maybe every month, we need to run the maintenance jobs on all of the tables, or the large tables or fact tables, to optimize with the V-order for faster reading, and remove any unreferenced files as well. Okay, great. So I hope that's clear. Let me come back to the presentation. If you can give me another minute, let me drink some water. Okay, great. Let me share this link as well so that you can do some reading later whenever you find some time regarding the table maintenance. So any questions so far, feel free. I can see a couple of you guys, Sabir and Deepak, feel free to drop a comment. So I'll come back to the question shortly. We will take it up in another 5-10 minutes. Okay. So let me come back to the presentation again. Let me close the presentation. Okay, we are actually close to completion, I would say. So a couple of technologies or techniques we talked about: the partitioning, V-ordering, and I think the small file problem we already addressed. Why it is happening, because each write, probably, if you're not defining your partitioning strategy well, you might end up with a lot of small files being created. And I think the optimize is the command we have just looked in the table maintenance to compact or merge those small files. It will automatically do that compaction and vacuum to clean up the unreferenced files. Okay, because you have to take care of this, otherwise it will lead to unnecessary, increased query latency and compute usage. So you have to think about, keep in mind the small file problem as well. So make sure you have a job running maybe in the backend every month to optimize your delta tables. So that's very crucial in a kind of enterprise kind of a setting, I would say, right? Well, okay, so quick summary, I think I'm done. Okay, so these are the techniques I wanted to talk about, and especially the partitioning, when to partition, so the best practices, and V-ordering, what V-ordering is, and how we can kind of enable that as a Spark job inside the Fabric ecosystem. Okay, so we looked at partitioning, the folder-based data pruning, and then we designed based on the low cardinality columns, and we talked about the 1 TB limit from Microsoft and the forum response as well. Some of the suggestions from Microsoft directly when you need to go for partitioning, and then we order as a technology what is happening. I mean, under the hood, and at the right, it's a right time optimization technique, and then it maximizes the read time. And you'll have some latency during writing because we are doing that row group sorting at the time of writing, but it will maximize the compression and then the read times for you. Okay. And then optimize, it will package these two, I would say, vacuum, then compaction, V-order, everything will be packaged and optimized, right? So after a bulk load, if you have a bulk load job running, maybe you need to kick off the job in an automated fashion to optimize the table. Okay, and then vacuum, it will delete the obsolete files and should be a part of routine maintenance. So you no need to look at these in silos. Optimize will take care of everything, and vacuum you need to enable in the table maintenance wizard we have seen in Fabric, and probably you can maintain it manually or have a job run it every month to optimize your Delta tables. Okay, perfect. And I hope that gave some knowledge and some insights into the Delta table optimization. Maybe there could be more. We'll talk about those in another opportunity in the interest of time. So let me move on. So before I take the questions, if you have any questions, I'm happy to take those. But before we get on to the Q&A session, I wanted to quickly um, probably help you with some of the offerings from my academy, so that you can take your next step probably in your learning journey, and let me know if I can be of help further. Okay, so I have a YouTube channel, dedicated channel, so I'm going to drop the link so you can watch the One Lake series. I wanted to quickly share the One Lake series with you. Let me quickly share that. Probably these two links. Give me a moment. So I have a dedicated playlist for One Lake series. So you can go through that. And this is my school URL and the LMS URL that you can look at different products we have hosted there. And the YouTube playlist link that we have covered, mirroring the 4 different topics that I talked about, right? So mirroring the One Lake security, then the integration between Lakehouse and Warehouse, and then the today's topic will also be uploaded. The live recording will also be uploaded. Okay, so all of those 4 different topics we covered in detail. So that's available in the playlist. And if you want one-on-one support, and we have 3 months coaching program as well, you can reach out to me if if you need my support, and if you want me to help probably in your Fabric learning journey, and I'm glad to help you further. So also, apart from, we have different learning tracks. As I mentioned, we are taking this weekly workshops. I hope it is useful. And apart from that, we have 3 months one-on-one coaching program if you need a dedicated support. And if you're also, if you're someone not able to kind of set up the Fabric environment, right? So we are ready to help you on that as well. So we have different membership tiers in Datavion Academy, and we have Elite Beta tier. We have just launched it. And what we basically do is we'll provision a hands-on environment. Okay, we will spin up a VM, dedicated VM for you. No Azure setup required. So you will have a dedicated environment. And I think the restriction is because it is going to be built on our tenant. So we are going to give you 3 hours per day access across all the month, all 7 days, right? And it will be for based on the trial environment. Okay, because Fabric trial, because Fabric capacity is very expensive. You may be aware. So we will get 2 months trial. So, and I think you will get 7 days free trial in Elite Beta, which is $49 per month. And if you go for yearly also, we can agree. But during your 7 days trial, nothing you will pay upfront. So only after 7 days you'll be charged, and we will also try to provision the VM and then Fabric trial account for you in the immediately after subscription. If you're not able to procure 2 months Fabric trial for some reason, if there are restrictions, we will revoke the membership and nothing will be charged in your card. Okay, so that is our promise. Okay, so because we are going to work on it purely based on the Fabric trial. Okay, so and then after 2 months also, we will try to procure a new trial. Okay, Fabric trial, because we cannot pay for fabric capacity, then the cost will be different, right? So because even for the F2 tier, it is very expensive. You can just have a look at the fabric capacity costing. It is very expensive, and we will try to provide the dedicated VM and then set up the fabric trial environment with the user that is created in our tenant. Okay, and you will have one-on-one support from my side as well if there are any issue down the line, and you will get access to all of the products, all three end-to-end courses in the academy as well in the LMS platform. So you let me know if you have any questions around the beta tier. I'm going to share you the different membership uh, options. We have pro tier and basic tier. Pro tier, we have AA tutor that is trained on stock market analytics courses. Okay, you will get that AA tutor and then everything included in the basic tier. So basic tier, you will get only the access to lifetime access to 3 course bundles. Okay, and you won't get AA tutor or the dedicated sandbox. Okay, so probably, if you need basic, but I would recommend Elite Beta, which we currently opened up for few select candidates to explore how we can procure the labs or sandbox for dedicated sandbox for students, so that we can try and avoid the setup headache, right, for you. So it'll be easy for you to right away learn and then try and practice alongside. Okay, so those are the 3 different trials, and these 2 comes with 14-day trial, and this comes with a 7-day trial. So you're not paying anything upfront again. So if you're going for monthly, you can go for it, and the trial will be activated. We'll try to procure a sandbox, and then if you're not able to procure Fabric trial 2 months for some reason, then the membership will be cancelled and nothing will be charged. Okay, so I can quickly share you the links, and then we can move on to Q&A. Just give me a moment. So these are the membership tiers which I wanted to share with you guys. So you have the checkout links for everything, basic, monthly, yearly, and you have 25% discount for yearly, and Elite Beta monthly and yearly is also there. And if you want to learn more about the activation policy and refund policy, feel free to learn more about in this particular URL as well. Okay, and you're always welcome to yeah. So we are glad to assist you if you're interested in any of the membership options. Okay. And I hope I have shared all of the reference links as and when we spoke about the topics. Okay, so I think that being said, I think I'm done with the presentation. We'll move on to Q&A right away. So let me open the floor for Q&A. I think I have a couple of guys. Deepak, Saber, if you have any questions, please. Yeah. Yeah, no problem, Deepak. If you want me to unmute, you can ask any of your questions or you can speak up. No, sorry, there are some restrictions from the team, but I can definitely unmute if you want to talk. I'm glad to do that. And thank you. I'm really glad it helped to some extent, provided some value out of the session. Yeah. And Saber, to you too, if you want to speak up, I can unmute you. Yeah. Okay, so your question is. Okay, Sabir, no questions. That's good. But Deepak, you're asking how this reorder will help in semantic model. That's what I mentioned, Deepak. So Power BI Direct Lake technology, if you've already heard about it, there is this third storage mode in the semantic model. So you have already heard about probably the import mode and the direct query mode in your data model in Power BI. But when you're designing, let's say even the direct query will talk to the underlying tables, right? So we can also think about direct query also, but direct query will be slower, and Microsoft claim is the direct lake will be much faster, right? And I think direct lake will directly impact once you optimize the table. And once you perform this V-order, right? V-order and then have your data in a right order or the sorted way in every row group. Uh, I think then you'll have all of the row groups intact, right? So which will definitely help. But I think again, from direct lake storage mode, when you have the queries from your Power BI, the DAX queries, when you run with some predicates again, right? So we are the whole idea of reordering is to reduce the data scan time, right? And I think when you run the queries for your report from Power BI, from your data model with some predicates, right? So, and then it will try and skip some of the blocks of data, right? And that's the idea. And that way, in that way, it will help the model to render the reports much faster, I would say. And I hope that answers your question. Or if it's not clear, please let me know. And Sabir is asking what difference between V-order. Okay, that's a good question. So as I mentioned, Z-order, we are not going to dive deep into it, but it is a clustering technique. Okay, so but I think V-order, as I mentioned, we are trying to do that kind of a compression and then a row group distribution, you can say, right? So we are trying to have a similar value in every row group when we are trying to write to the Parquet files. Okay, but a Z-order as a technique, it's kind of a clustering technique. Okay, but if you ask me the exact difference, I can probably come back to you. Okay, but it is a clustering technique, but V-order is not a clustering technique. Okay, so we are you might think of it as a clustering technique, but it is not a clustering technique. You know, we are essentially doing that row group distribution, making sure we have similar values in every row group. Okay, so that we will try and reduce the data scan time. But Z-order is completely a different technique. As I mentioned, I've shown you the Microsoft documentation also. It's a clustering technique, but the inner workings we will probably talk about the details in another opportunity. Then we will probably discuss about the difference. Okay, so we need to get into the details of Z order. Okay, then it will be useful. Yeah, and use cases definitely. You know, I can come back with probably another session on Z order, and then we can do the comparison between V order and Z order and use cases. I think that will definitely help. Okay, help you guys. So I can take that as a notes for me. And yeah, so I hope it's clear. Great, clear, and thank you. You're welcome. One more thing, this reordering will be useful on every SQL query. To answer that question, as I mentioned, see, if you're having a let's say if you're doing that reordering based on a specific column, right? So at a specific column or regional level, let's say, right? So or a couple of columns. So then the data will be sorted in every row group based on the if you're not specifying any of the column, then I think it might probably be taking all of the columns, but let's imagine, if we are doing the reordering based on a specific column like the region, right? So then it will try and sort the data in every row group based on the column, right? The column chunk that we were talking about. So in that way, I think when you're running some SQL queries, when you're using predicate based on that particular column, right? So then it will try to avoid the data scan time or skipping, right? Otherwise, we cannot say it will be useful on every SQL query. So if you have some predicates, if you're trying to filter out some data in your query, and that way it will try to help. Reorder will help, right? So because we are trying to make sure we have similar values, probably kind of tight in a tight block in every row group. Okay, so in that way, when you have some predicates or filters in your query, then it will definitely help to skip some of the data and then stick to some of the row groups and then reduce the data scan time, and then it improve the query performance. Okay, so does that answers your question, Deepak, on the other query? Yeah, welcome. Okay, so any other questions, Deepak? Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, I'm glad you guys joined. Maybe other people can look at the recording and probably gain some value out of it. And feel free to let me know if there are any more questions, or otherwise we can wrap up. So definitely check out the membership options. I will be providing you a dedicated support, personalized support in the Elite beta tier that we have just launched, and we will procure the sandbox as well. You no need to go and procure your Azure subscription and then create your user and then activate Fabric Trail. All that headache we will take. Okay, so we will create that sandbox for you, and we will give it to you, and you will gain access to all of the lifetime access to all of the courses, one-on-one support from my side. You will get everything. Okay, so check out which tier suits you. I recommend memberships more than the course purchase, one-time purchase, because it is going to be a recurring commitment every month, and then we will be kind of traveling in the journey, right? So I kind of try and help you as much as I can, okay, during every week. Okay, great. So that being said, any other questions you guys have? Okay, great. Sabir and Deepak, definitely check out the membership, and I'm looking forward. Okay, so you can also refer your friends or beginners, be it in any level. Okay, so I hope you guys are at intermediate to advanced. Sorry, I had a look at your profiles, but I will look into it again. Okay, so Deepak, you're not a technical guy, so how can I start my journey? Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so don't worry about it. So I may know from which background you're in. So are you not from IT itself, or you're not from kind of a technical, or probably you're from a sales or some other uh, department? But definitely we can work it out even if you're not a technical guy. We can plan a structured, personalized plan. I can work with you to help you to kickstart, and kind of help you with the learning journey. And then, yeah, probably if you're aiming for the career transition, definitely I can help you out with one-on-one support. But definitely, see, it's not like even if you're from different background, you cannot step into a Fabric world and data analyst world, right? So you can, right? So with a structured plan in place, that's what we are going to help you. If you probably, keep, I would recommend probably keep at least 6 months if you're not in the technical world or data world itself, right? So maybe you need to have 6 months down the line and do some dedicated end-to-end projects as we have already in the platform, and gain the foundations right and learn more about different technologies, concepts, and then have as much as hands-on, because at Datavion Academy we focus purely on hands-on, apart from slides, as I mentioned. So we try and bridge that gap between theory and practice. Okay, so we can definitely work out, Deepak. Feel free to reach out to me. We can work out on a plan, or if you want to get into a membership, I can help you with the weekly mentoring sessions. That will also be included, one-on-one mentoring sessions every week. You will get the sandbox, the course access, everything will be there. Okay, yeah, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to help you to plan your journey, I would say. We can definitely structure that. And Seber, I have DP600, how to practice. Okay, great. I think if you already have DP600, great, well and good. So I think I would say if you're able to procure Azure and then have the Fabric trial activated, well and good. You need to do that, because I'm little surprised you got your DP600 without practice. Sorry about it. Because to my students, I usually recommend do the hands-on as much as you can before appearing for the certification. Otherwise, certification is of no use. Don't take me wrong, because you need to get the rigorous hands-on, as and when you learn something. That's my focus. No, we need to bridge that gap between theory and practice. Otherwise, getting that certification, put in the resume, and jump onto a project, you will not have that confidence at all, I would say. So please, in a real world, uh, definitely you need to have practice. And I would recommend, we have end-to-end, three different end-to-end projects in the platform. So one is the stock market real-time analytics course, which is like 4.5 hours. You can download all of the resources. It is an end-to-end real-time project. If you've already invested in the stock market, it's a great project for you. You can build your own portfolio in the dashboard itself. You can build. Probably I can share you the link in the school URL. As I mentioned, you can have a look at it. Let me show you that real quickly. So you have to navigate to this learn.datavsolutions.com. You can see all of the products listed here, and you can see there are quite a lot of products, memberships, and then this is the one I would recommend if you need a real world practice, Sabir, right? So don't worry about the costing here. Okay, so if you need the environment as well, help from my side, I can procure a sandbox. So you can come in a membership, Allied Beta membership, so which will include the 2 months Fabric trial, dedicated VM for you to practice, and then the course access as well. All three end-to-end projects. So here You can see it's a near real-time course. So we are bringing in the data from the stock API, and then we do the data engineering, and then till dashboard monitoring, automation, everything is included. It's like 22 lessons you have, which is close to 4.5 hours. And it is, if you're buying this course as one time, this is the cost in Indian money. But I think I would recommend you to go for membership if you want the sandbox lab as well, Sabir. But I can share you this link if you want to check out. Probably you can do a preview of a couple of videos how the learner's expectation and course structure is set. Okay, so that you can go through. So I can share the link. This is a real world project, stock market real world project, and we leveraged real-time intelligence components inside Fabric, Sabir. But if you want to do a one-time purchase, I'm happy, inshallah. Otherwise, if you need my support, dedicated support, and then the environment you need me to create, then go for the Elite Beta membership that we have just launched. So that will have everything in the Elite membership. You can go for monthly. You will have 7 days trial or yearly also. If you need my support for longer term. Okay, great. Any other questions, Deepak and Sabir? Want me to answer, or any doubts? You can definitely reach out to me in LinkedIn. I hope you guys are connected. I'm not sure, but otherwise, I can share my LinkedIn real quickly. So let me share my profile links so that we can be connected. So this is my link. So you can always reach out to me. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's be connected, and let me know if you need any help going forward. And yeah, thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed the session, and we will catch up in another opportunity. Okay, great. If there are no more questions, thank you so much and have a nice evening. Have a nice weekend. And I'll see you in another session. And please reach out to me if you need my help further. Probably be it membership or course purchase, anything you want. I'm ready to help you because that's why I'm here. Okay. So thank you guys, and see you in another session. Thank you. Bye. Take care.